Hi everybody, it's Andrew Hutchings with you here tonight, and this video is not about typical fitness, health, supplement, diet topics. This one is about a different topic. How I can dislike doctors so much and still want to be a doctor, but actually that's not truly the topic. The topic is really just why I would like to work as a doctor. And the answer is because I'm already a doctor. I'm just not a licensed doctor. I've always been a doctor. You don't need going to medical school, getting a license does not make you a doctor. Being a doctor is who you are. You're either born a doctor or you're not. I've been since the time that my brain reached the maturity that it could think about such topics and start to comprehend the human body, even at a very basic level, I have always been extremely interested and had a natural, better understanding than most other people about the human body. My interest and my talents happen to coincide with this. It's just who I've always been. I've always helped people to figure out their medical problems, especially when doctors failed them, because sadly that's the case a lot of the times, that doctors fail the patients. And that brings me to another reason that I want to be a doctor. It's because I want to make the chance that when a patient goes to the doctor, that they will actually be helped and receive beneficial treatment higher. Because if I become a doctor, at least there's a slightly higher chance that when somebody goes to a doctor, they will come to me and actually be helped. Because as it stands right now, too many doctors are not helping people for various reasons. Either they're not capable, they're not willing, they don't care. I don't think about these videos ahead of time. And the reasons, there's main reasons, but there's also, of course, little reasons. But regardless of the reasons, sadly, doctors often do not help people. Sometimes they try to help people and they just aren't able to. They fail. At least they tried. That falls under the not capable, but at least they actually did try and give it their best, assuming they did. Then there are the doctors that have an attitude problem and don't truly want to help people. They just want to feel in charge and feel good about themselves. Those are the type of doctors that you'll go to with a problem and they'll assert authoritatively, or however you want to say it, like with their certain attitude that you couldn't possibly have that problem, and it's below them to even investigate that. You have no idea what you're talking about. You're not a doctor. How dare you even suggest that perhaps that is going on? And because of their attitude problem, they will wholly discount that simply because you brought it up. That is beyond stupid and horrible and irresponsible. I encountered doctors like that myself, actually, when I tore... It's healed now, so it's not as quick to find it. When I tore this ligament right here, and I partially tore my rotator cuff, and later on I partially tore, but all these were severe, even though they were partial. For example, this ligament right here was holding on. It may have even been fully torn because I could push the bones closer, and then when I would so I would push and they would go closer, and I would release and they would come apart. So I physically held the bones together for I don't know how many months. I also tore my bicep tendon that runs into my chest. That was down to a very small string type size, and really it should be much larger. And my rotator cuff, I don't know how badly that was torn. Not as badly as the others, I think, but still torn. And when I went to doctors, there were quite a few doctors who asserted that I could not have possibly torn those things because I was only 17, that only happens to 40-year-olds. They outright refused to even consider it. The MRI literally would show a white dot where this ligament is, and the doctors would go, "Oh, that's nothing, that's just a coincidence, it's something else." I don't remember their exact responses. But it was horrible just because they couldn't accept that they couldn't let something challenge their beliefs, that could actually happen in a 17-year-old, that tendons and ligaments could actually tear. They would not even consider it. And there were other doctors who were not treating me for other reasons, or not able to treat me, or there were multiple reasons why doctors failed me, and then there were also the doctors that harmed me very badly. And the one that harmed me the worst also failed to believe that the patient could actually know what he was talking about when he put the cortisone injection into my nerve. And I said, "I think you hit a nerve," because I felt a jolt of pain. And he discounted that, said, "No, I know what I'm doing, blah, 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 I didn't hit a nerve." And he injected the cortisone, or whatever corticosteroid it was, and the pain skyrocketed and went to the max. And my left arm almost died. It was purple and cold, 99% paralyzed, and atrophying. Of course, like I already mentioned, there are good doctors out there, but not all of them are actually capable of helping people. And I'm not saying I'm capable of helping people in every single situation. When a relative came to me and was describing some odd abdominal pains, I really just did not know what was going on this one time. It really bothered me that I didn't know what was going on, but I didn't pretend that I did. I didn't assert that certain things had to be true, certain things had to be false, and it bothered me that I didn't know what was going on, but it's not so much of a self-esteem thing. It was more of a, I really don't like when I don't know how to help somebody and fix their problem. And sadly, I had to just tell him that I don't know, sorry, I don't know much about abdominal pains. But I actually have helped somebody with abdominal pains before, but there was more to work on. Whereas this case I just told you about, there was really not much information to go on. So he could go to the doctor and get tests run, and hopefully those tests would show something, but tests don't always, because they only test for specific things. And then there can be a lot of other stuff going on, and even if there is something going on with what they test, it doesn't necessarily show up in a test. But I have also treated another person, helped them treat themselves. I didn't treat them because I'm not a doctor. Of course I can't treat them. This girl had gone to many doctors, really very, very many doctors for very many years. I mean, not decades, but like 3 to 5 years. And none of the doctors were able to do anything to help her for some reason. Probably they had an attitude problem and discounted the fact and assumed that she was simply a drug addict when she said that both heroin and marijuana helped the stomach problems. Now, I understand where they're coming from. You hear somebody say that heroin helps them, you go, "Oh, they're just a drug addict, and get out of here. I know what you want." But you have to put your idiocy aside for a second. And it's not idiocy, I don't know a better word for it, but you can't let these things get in the way of good medical treatment. You have to look at it objectively. Think for a second. Is there something that heroin does that could actually be helping the abdominal issue? Now, of course, you know that heroin is also a strong painkiller. You know, it's an addictive drug, so you take into account the fact that probably, even if there is something beneficial that it's doing, the patient is also addicted to it and simply wants it to get high or to stave off withdrawals. But you still consider the fact that there is some actual physical thing that it's doing that is improving the condition. And then you take into consideration, oh, they also said that marijuana was beneficial. Marijuana, people also use it to get high. It's very different than heroin in most regards. But there is at least one similarity that's very significant and related to the gastrointestinal tract. And that's where all the stars align and you actually treat the patient, because you don't let all the drug stuff cloud your judgment and, oh, they're just a drug addict, blah, blah, blah. Now, that one thing that they have in common that relates to the gastrointestinal tract is that they both slow it down to a considerable degree. Now, I don't know if you knew that, especially about marijuana, but it does tend to. Perhaps there are some strains that do not, perhaps there are some strains that do it more than others, but typically marijuana does cause gastroparesis to a degree, or it at least slows it down. So that's when I thought, whoa, perhaps it's hypermotility of the gut. They both have that in common. So then you go, what is another way that we could treat that without the addictiveness and without the reward system activation, aka getting high? What is some way that we could treat that would have no other desirable effects that could blur the response from the patient? And then I thought, and I went, oh, loperamide, it is an opiate that can't cross the blood-brain barrier. It will not get her high, she won't enjoy it, and there's really no recreational value. She was not going through withdrawal through anything, so it wouldn't have slightly helped the withdrawal. So she tried loperamide, which is an over-the-counter anti-diarrhea medication, and lo and behold, it helped her the very first day she took it. Helped her the second day. Helped her the third day. But then, she stopped liking to take it. Why? Because it wasn't getting her high. But that does not change the fact that we learned the actual cause of her stomach discomfort, which was hypermotility of the gut. Now, of course, she preferred heroin and marijuana over loperamide, but it doesn't mean that now she could be treated for the stomach discomfort without those drugs, medications, whatever you want to call them. And that's how doctors need to be. They need to put their whatever aside and actually treat the patient rather than just, oh, you're a lowly patient, you don't know what you're talking about, oh, you're a drug addict, whatever. Doctors find many reasons to discount their patients and to ignore things they're saying when you really need to consider everything that the patient says. And you also can't be against certain things just because they have a stigma attached to them. For example, anabolic steroids have very good medical uses. However, steroids, evil drugs, people use them for muscles, how horrible, performance-enhancing drugs. They have a stigma, so many doctors, even in situations when they would extremely benefit the patient, they discount them. They'll even not want to see the patient again. They'll even lie and say they can't prescribe them. They'll do anything they can to just get that out of the way. They don't want to have anything to do with steroids. That comes back to doctors needing to be more objective and actually have a deep interest in helping the patient, regardless of what it takes, regardless of how the patient is. And it's just most doctors aren't like that for some reason. And they have too big of an ego, and they have too big of an interest in helping themselves because they don't want the patients that could be troublesome. They want the easy patients. I'm not saying all doctors, but too many. That's why I need to be a doctor, so that there's a little bit higher chance that when somebody goes to the doctor, they'll get the treatment that they need. And there's other reasons. Like I've said, it's just always been in my blood, in me. I've always been a doctor. fully believe that you don't need a degree to be something. Like, if somebody's an engineer and they've worked their whole life as an engineer, you wouldn't go, oh, well, you don't have a degree, you're not an engineer. Just as you wouldn't go, oh, you're not a doctor because you don't have a medical degree. It's moronic to think that you need a degree to be something. No, you are what you are. And if there's a medical school listening to this, since I will apply to them sooner or later, I hope you like this video. I hope you like the rest of my content and that you can look at it objectively, even though some of it is about anabolic steroids, which are, by the way, in case you didn't know this for sure, prescription medications, especially in the United States. But of course they are misused. But still, I hope you look at all my content objectively and you don't simply discard it because I talk about topics that aren't neat and clean and tidy or whatever. Because real medicine does not depend on our social norms. It doesn't depend on what's acceptable. It doesn't depend on what's not acceptable. It doesn't depend on if the patient's doing something that you don't like or that's considered bad. It doesn't depend on if the treatment is out there or if it's atypical or if, oh, it might look like I'm prescribing abusable drugs. You simply need to do the best thing for the patient. Please like and subscribe, and check out my other YouTube videos, and check out my Instagram, natural_true_fitness. And you can hire me as a coach, fitness advisor, diet advisor, supplement advisor, whatever. And if you're a medical school person looking at this, please consider me for your medical school. And I can't think of anything else to say to you at this moment. We need more good doctors in the world.